Hello everyone. I am Mrs. Pragati Mahale, working as an assistant professor at AISSMS Institute of Information Technology, Pune. This video is about the use case diagram, which is under the Computer Lab 8 of BEIT syllabus. So let us understand what do you mean by use case diagram. Use case diagram is a formal way of representing how a business or a system interacts with its environment. So it is based on the system for which you are going to design your use case models. It illustrates the activities that are performed by the users of the system. Use case diagram is a scenario based technique used in UML because we divide our entire system into smaller modules, which we call them as scenario, and for each and every scenario that we consider, we using a use case diagram, we try to find out the interaction with respect to the external factors with your system. So this scenario in UML describes the use case diagram, and it is nothing but the sequence of actions a system performs and that yields to the valuable result for the particular actor. So a use case diagram describes what a system does from the standpoint of an external observer. Here, the emphasis is on what the system does rather than how. So we are not going into any details about the internal functionality or the implementation of the system at this level. Using use case diagram, we emphasize more on the design part of the system. We emphasis on what is the system about rather than how the system is going to work. So we are at the design level, and at this level, we are only describing our system and the interaction of the system with the external factors or the users of the system. So use case diagram are closely connected to the scenario, and the scenario is nothing but it is an example of what happens when someone interacts with the system. So let us see the use case diagram components. So there are three components used in the use case diagram. The first is the use case. Use case, that is the task referred to as a use case that represents the feature needed in the software system. So what is the feature or the function or the operation that is represented by the use case? Second component is the actor or actors who trigger the use case to activate. So all these are the external factors which can be humans or some hardware or software component or the signal who triggers this particular use case to take the action. And the third component of use case diagram is the communication line, it to show how the actors communicate with each other. This communication line depicts the relationship of the actor with the use case. So let us see in detail the use case. Use case, it is a major process performed by the system that benefits an actor in some way. So use case we can consider as some operation of the system or some process or a task that is performed in the system. Use case models a dialogue between the actor and the system, and it represents the functionality provided by the system. Use case. Each use case describes one and only one function in which the user interacts with the system. So we can have multiple use cases designed in our modeling. So every use case represents some functionality or some process or the operation which is taking place in the system. Use case may contain several paths that the user can take while interacting with the system. Each path is referred to as a scenario. Now, in use case diagram, the second component is the actor. So, what is an actor? An actor is a user or outside system that interacts with the system being designed in order to obtain some value from that interaction. Use case describes scenarios that describes the interaction between the user of the system and the system itself. So here it is very much clear that the actor is some external entity or it is some user of the system who interacts with the system in form of exchange of some information or to obtain some value or data from the system. So there is some interaction of this actor with the system, and that interaction is also depicted using the use cases. So the actor is outside or external to the system. The actor can be a human, it can be a peripheral device, that is the hardware, it could be an external system or some another subsystem, it could be some signal, it could be a time or a time-based event. How we represent actors in the use case modeling is by a stick figure. This stick figure is labeled using a description which is a noun or a phrase, and it is represented by the stick character. The third component is the communication line or the relationship. So the relationship represents the communication between the actor and the use case. It is depicted by the line or a double-headed arrow line, and above this particular line you can also mention some label or the description of the type of relationship. It is here a simple line is also called as the association relationship. So the relationship represents what is the connection or what is the communication between the actor and the use case in our scenario. Now, let us understand the use case diagram and its component with one example. So here we are taking a scenario for a medical clinic. So the scenario is a patient calls the clinic to make an appointment for the yearly checkup, and the receptionist finds the nearest empty time slot in the appointment book and schedules the appointment for that time slot. So here we want to write a use case for this particular scenario. Remember that the use case is a summary of scenarios for some single task or a goal. So whatever is our system or the project under design, we always break down that project into number of smaller modules and depict those modules as a scenario, and we draw the use case diagram for each and every scenario so that we are able to understand the clarity of the dialogue, the interaction, or the information exchange between the system and the various actors of the system. So this is why use case diagrams are used in the design phase so that we understand the system at the design level and then we go for the implementation. The very first step that we have to do is to identify the actors of our system. So, for the given scenario, for the appointment for yearly checkup, as we read the scenario, define those people or the system that are going to interact with the scenario. All those people are going to be our actors. So, in this scenario, we see that the patient calls the clinic. So, patient is our actor for this particular scenario, and the receptionist finds the nearest empty time slot and make an appointment and schedule the appointment. So we read in this scenario, for actor we try to identify actor by asking the question what or who is the actor. So here in our scenario, it is very clear the actor, the external entity to the system is nobody else but the patient. So here the patient becomes the actor. Now, use case, it is a summary of scenarios for the single task or the goal. So here in our example, when we have to consider various use cases, one of the use case is to make the appointment. It is a use case for the medical clinic. So the picture below is a make appointment use case for the medical clinic example. So we have actor which is a patient. Then this make appointment is our use case, and the connection between the actor and the use case is a relationship which is nothing but a association kind of relationship. So the patient is interacting in the system to make the appointment. So actor is a stick figure, use case are represented with the ovals, and the communication, that is the relationship, is indicated by a line that links the actor with the use case. So this particular example helps us to understand the scenario and understand the various components of the use case diagram that we use to model the design for our system. Thank you so much.